life is fascinating. It's complex and simple at the same time. And is it making any difference me talking about it? I don't know. Do I enjoy talking about life? Yes. Why? Hmm. Maybe talking about it creates kind of an appreciation, affirmation, and appreciation. And if we go back to the levels of consciousness, then you can see that once we start even talking about it, like making life as the center of our attention, and attention is, intentional. Attention is intentional. So my attention is intentional. See how important that phrase is? My attention is intentional. So wherever I put my attention to, the intention then can work its magic. So obviously I have always an intention of love and goodness. Number one rule. Simple as that. And then the attention, where do I put it? So if I put it internally into more goodness, it will just, be like multiplier, fortifier to nourish it to grow even more, right? But also we can also put outside somewhere our nourishment into goodness, to someone else's goodness, but that would be also, not always correct because sometimes people have to discover their own goodness for their own growth. You cannot make them codependent upon other people's goodness frequency, It's also a trap, a spiritual trap, to be constantly like adoring someone else's high frequency, yet having not learned how to manufacture your own frequency. Because, we can all manufacture our own higher frequency, I believe, by investigating and intentionally bringing everything unconscious into conscious. As simple as that. Everything that we have unconscious is our unused potential that we then can bring into our highest potential. And then we live our highest potential frequency. And if people live in a lower frequency, it just means they still have lots of potential. Wow. Oh, it's windy. So yeah, how amazing is that? If you see a person with lots of unconscious behavior and lots of ignorant, how amazing. Congratulations. It means there is still so much potential to go. So I love the phrase of Eckhart Tolle, but I think even he repeated it from a monk or something. There was this thing about um, homeless person sitting on a box, and then someone walks by and asks what is inside the box, and the homeless person is like, I don't know. Then the other person like, why did you not look into it? And he's like, I don't know. I'm a beggar. I'm just begging people to help me. And then turns out that for years this beggar was not looking inside this box. And turns out that he was sitting on a box full of gold, filled with gold. So that's the same analogy. I love this analogy because it's truly the same analogy with our unconscious pattern. If we sit like a beggar and asking people for attention, for knowledge, for wisdom, for guidance, for anything outside of ourselves, which of course everything is in balance. So there is like a, some things are okay, we can ask. There's not a message of we shouldn't ask at all. No, no, no. It's a balance. But where do we start first? How do we actually teach our own body and consciousness and mind to create our own gold? And basically, that means this unconsciousness, if we learn it for good, we will never be codependent on any other substances or people, or, any dependency is an addiction. For wisdom or for knowledge or for anything, for love, for any source of goodness that you can't give yourself. And truth to be told, we can always generate it from ourselves. Balance, right? Of course, there is an outside factor, but I'm talking about the small thing as generating our unconscious pattern into conscious pattern. For this, you don't need any money. You don't need to travel to a different location to pray somewhere. You can do it here, right now, wherever you are. There's also a saying or a book, wherever you go, there you are. And that's the truth. You can get some help, get some inspiration by special locations, by special teachers, by special groups that can create and elevate you, for sure, that can create the space of inspiration. And the same as I'm serving as more like an inspiration to then do your own internal work, because nobody will ever deliver anything inside of you. You have to create it yourself. And I remember at the beginning, I was like so like drawn to people with more knowledge, drawn to people with more wisdom, drawn to people with more. And then every time there was a time where first it was like consuming it, which is great because it's inspiration. And then there was like a lack because I could feel the distance between me and the other person. And I could feel like, why is it not fulfilling me or making me long term wise? Because there was a lack of self development, self investigation, self creation, self generating. And that's what we do. We learn how to self generate this feeling without a group, without another person, without any other external factor, which we all use for inspiration, but then the gold is really there where you have to do the work yourself. You know, I know people that went for years, for 5, 6, 7 years to therapy, and they still exactly there where they started. Why? Because there was just from observation for the purpose of a story. It's just a story. Could be not true, but just from a story point of view, there was not much development. Why? Because there was not a self-development. There was a complete codependency onto the outsourcing of a therapist. And everybody knows that a therapist or a guide or a coach or anything can only do so much to realign, to inspire, but the work has to be still, of course, done by the person itself. And I'm not really talking about like, because I've been there. So I know that I wanted to have the full wisdom just put onto me, and I wanted to feel good ASAP without digging, in. And this only happens when you actually do the work. And this is always the last resort, because if people tried everything to avoid to do the work, the last stop. I feel like I'm the last stop here because usually people would most probably be drawn to my content, the ones that are already on the last stop of their spiritual journey, I believe. Because or someone who's inspired to do the spiritual journey from the beginning correctly. Because the ego has tendency to avoid everything first, to avoid the difficulty, the difficult work. To it's not even difficult, but it's really more self-responsible work. To do the work and be empowered by your own craftsmanship of your own internal state. This is usually for the ones that want to make a difference for themselves. Everyone that wants the easier route will be immediately swiping away and not interested in the content that I'm creating as an inspiration and also as a toolbox, like as a formula how to feel better and how to bring unconscious into conscious. I mean, that's what actually the simple message is. How do I become conscious and therefore create everything with love? Basically, bringing every unconscious emotion or thought into a conscious state where I can choose. And of course, everyone who is conscious will always choose love because that's our biggest motivation in life. Because love is actually happiness. Love is sharing it with others. Because even if you would be the happiest person on planet Earth, if you can't share it, like give it or like even show it to the other person, share the frequency, then you feel like, why am I like even having this high vibration? Because it's great to have a high vibration, but if you don't share it like on a loving, compassionate, exchange, then it feels almost like, for what? That's why people creating content, people go out and be friendly to others. Not because they're like, oh, I'm just like a nice person. No, I'm not doing it because I'm just a nice person. I'm doing it because it truly fulfills me, because it truly automatically, organically is the natural state of my being, and not because my ego gets anything from it. Trust me. There will be much more other things that my ego would be much more satisfied to get, you know, the attention and easy whatever access. But this is really more like a path of devotion, of where I felt so broken inside when I was on the journey. So that's why I feel like, can I ever at least make it slightly easier on someone else still on it? And maybe have a support without being a crutch. You know what I mean? That's a very important statement. How can I bring my message of going from unconscious to conscious without, creating some sort of a teaching role of codependency, by, but also like being a support without being a crutch? Because truth to be told, I don't want to tell people that they need the crutch because they don't. Because I want to remind myself and others at the same time that we're all on the path, we're all moving along. Some are a little bit further along, some at the beginning on their unconsciousness, but we all have the one thing in common of devotional goodness seeker. And you see, I believe like my religion would call goodness seeker because goodness has already God in it. God is from goodness. Everything that is God is goodness. That's in my personal belief system. Always check with yourself what suits you most. For me, seeking goodness is seeking God without any middleman. But if someone wants to use a middleman, that's also perfectly fine for them. That's just not what I'm all about here. I want to be exactly this, what religion doesn't do. I want to remove the middleman and just be the straight path to goodness. Not me as goodness of object, but the goodness that I can just point to that you can find in yourself. And the creation of goodness from all the unconsciousness, and some people call it shadow, into light, into consciousness. And everything is already present inside of us, and we can all access it any given moment in time when we feel we want to do this devotional path. And it's not just like devotional path the whole time, but like whenever you feel you want to pursue it, like obviously as more we do it, as more natural it also becomes and easier, I feel. And sometimes starting can be a little bit daunting, but overall, the path of devotional goodness, God seeker, God is such a stray word. That's why I call goodness, because I feel like it is God, just goodness. um. So yeah, this is my path. This is my message. This is what I'm here to participate in. And whoever is enjoying the content, they're welcome to enjoy it, and maybe they can get some use out of it and find their own empowerment in it. That would be amazing. And if not, maybe it was just entertainment as well. And for sure, it's also healing for myself, because in the moment we speak even just goodness into this world, it automatically serves ourselves and others. So it's always a win-win. When we go on the path of devotional seeker, it's always a win-win. There's never any waste ever. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this beautiful morning. Bye, yeah.